Welcome to The Dogs Were Good Again. Today I have the pleasure of speaking once again with Isabel Klee. Amongst this community, she needs no introduction. Her and her fiance Jacob recently said goodbye to their dog Simon, who is a constant in Isabel's videos over the years and a hell of a foster sibling to so many dogs in need, helping them adjust to the good life and preparing for their forever homes. I assume our discussion today will be largely about Simon and grief and processing loss. Before we chat with Isabel, I of course have an Adoptable special guest to introduce you to.
Oh, that looks like a good dog. That's a good dog. Yeah, that looks like a good dog. A very good dog.
Please join me in welcoming Bella. Hi. Hello. Her eyes are wild. And we have some toys. That is a pineapple, I think. Is this your pineapple? Treats come out of the pineapple. Hi. Yeah. Oh, sorry, it is yours. So this is Bella. She's delightful. She's a year and a half. She's a Kelpie and Australian Shepherd mix, we're pretty sure. And she's available for adoption from Real Good Rescue here in LA. Oh yeah, you know how this works. You got to spin it. Yeah, there you go. You got one. Okay, I'm pretty sure this is going to keep her occupied, so she'll be on camera for us. Real Good says she is an incredibly smart, high-energy dog who is ready to find a true adventure partner. She needs an active person who loves the outdoors and can keep up with her through activities like hiking, running, or agility training. Having a yard of her own where she can safely run and burn off some of her energy, it would be an absolute dream come true. So if you check any of those boxes, we've got a dog for you here. She picks up on house rules very quickly and thrives with a leader who is firm, gentle, and consistent. She loves mastering puzzle toys, which we have a few more of if needed, practicing trick training, and diving into nose work. Yeah, I can see all that. She's great with other dogs and people, house trained and crate trained. Those are all very positive things. And her adoption fee is sponsored. It's sponsored by Chantel and Peter Lee. Let's clap it up for them. Yeah, that's for you. That's for you. They say, we just want to help. Oh, it's a really short message. We just want to help and give every pup a chance. That is delightful. Thank you so much again, Chantel and Peter. If you would like to sponsor a future special guest adoption fee, you can email podcast@weratedogs.com. You're so cute. Isabel, thank you so much for joining us. First, how are you and Jacob holding up?
You know, I've been better.
Yeah.
But every day is a new adventure. I mean, I feel like something new pops up every single day that makes me remember him and miss him. My dog Simon passed away, for those who don't know, about a week and a half ago. And it's been the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through. But I tell everybody that it's also been the most life-affirming thing that I've ever gone through, and the most like connecting and beautiful thing. So it has been very hard. I've cried a lot, but we're doing pretty good.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. And again, so sorry for your loss. I think a lot of my questions I'm going to tee up with some personal anecdotes. I say that because I think losing a pet can feel uniquely isolating, but it's something that every pet parent is going to experience or has experienced. So I couldn't help but be reminded of Doug when I was asking these questions. So that's why I'm going to kind of tee these up as I do. As you know, people send We Rate Dogs their dogs all day long. And usually people are quite long-winded when they do share their dog, basically trying to convince us to love their dog as much as they do. We Rate Dogs is almost 11 years old, and sometimes our DM history chronicles an entire dog's life. With that comes the inevitable updates that a dog has passed. At one point, we estimated that we get between 30 and 50 DMs a day of someone sharing that information with us. People also, as I'm sure you've seen, utilize the comments as a space to share that. And if you comment, like I'm sure it is with your videos, if you comment that on our videos, you are going to get immediately a dozen people replying and holding your grief with you. I share all of that because when Doug died at the end of 2023, I got to experience the community I had fostered in such a visceral way that this time it was me sharing my loss instead of like helping this community hold their loss. And to have a few million people holding that sadness with me was a very beautiful thing. So my question is, how has sharing Simon with your community at the end of his life helped you with his loss?
I've gotten a lot of people who have said, I don't know how you're dealing with it to grieve in front of millions of people, and thanking me for like sharing. I pretty much chronicled I've chronicled his whole life,
Of
right? But
course, yeah.
especially the last week of his life, I made a bunch of videos, and I got so many people thanking me for welcoming in my followers and my audience and this community into those, pretty private moments. But honestly, it was not like a selfless decision. It was it was because I knew how much everybody loved Simon and so many people felt so connected to him. But it also was like so validating for me that it felt like my life was ending in so many ways. And I knew I would be okay and I knew I would survive, but like when you're actually going through it, it feels like you're not going to. And to actually share in that grief with millions of people. And, I can't even tell you, thousands of videos of people remembering Simon, posting themselves crying, just so many artists doing portraits of him, like the list goes on and on. It really validated my grief that this matters and this loss is important and his legacy mattered. And, I wrote about grief in my memoir, and I wrote about losing my childhood dog. And obviously I was 16 or 17 when my childhood dog passed away, and I didn't have any social media and none of this existed. And I remember it feeling so lonely because this dog was my entire life. And then she was gone. And, you just my parents had to go to work the next day. I had to go to school the next day. Like, people didn't treat it the same way that I think people treat it now. And I remember it feeling so isolating, and just like my life had completely changed overnight, and I had to just kind of like act like everything was fine, and nobody really like gave it the same respect. And so to have quite literally the exact opposite experience this time, it was amazing. And it helped me so much to feel like I wasn't alone in this loss. And obviously I think I feel the loss the most, but I mean, I have people commenting, it's only been a week and a half, but people comment every single day being like, I miss him so much. I miss him so much. I'm thinking about him. Like, that is such a beautiful thing. And I really think that having this kind of worldwide grief for a dog has also been validating for other people who feel their own grief and feel how important it is.
I'm sure it has. I also, I have another question about it, but you made a video where you were giving a speech to essentially what seemed like friends and family. And I think you spoke on a macro level, but also I was like so blown away by the amount of people that were with you then that played a role in his life. That's a lot of people. That's a big community. Obviously, Simon had his medical challenges, and that contributes to the need for like a village, but I was blown away by that as well.
Yeah, I feel so lucky. I mean, I have the best friends and family in the world. A lot of my friends, I mean, I have so many friends from childhood, and it was kind of like, when, I don't know, how old are you, by the way?
I'm 29. I'm about to turn 30.
So you're probably in that stage of life where like people are starting to have babies, and I had a friend who had a baby, and it's like the first baby of the group is so like treasured. Simon was the first dog in my friend group, and he was like completely adored and completely treasured. And like when my friends didn't have dogs, they had Simon, and he was like the background of all of my friends' phones. Like, he was like everyone was obsessed with him. And then as I got older, so many of my friends are Muddy Paws volunteers. Simon's vet is actually one of my very good friends. So the guy who he was literally at the celebration of life and then had to come the next day to like
Mm.
say goodbye with us. And so it's like everybody who is involved with him was so super involved with him. And it was just, I don't know. I felt so lucky and I felt so supported. I know my friends were there for me and for Jacob, but I honestly, like my best friend flew in from DC
Oh,
and
wow.
she was like, I had to say good, like he's just that important. He really was that amazing in person as he seems online. And yeah, I think he really will have a lasting impact, not just on the internet and everybody who followed him, but also on the people who actually knew him.
Well, I'm so glad you got it on such a large scale, but then also with a physical presence of all those people. That's very cool.
Yeah, it was truly the most beautiful. I honestly could not have asked for a better last week of his life.
Mm.
I mean, it felt like there's the only way to describe it was like the universe was just thanking him for what he had done because he was really not in good shape. He was really slowing down. And, you know, Jacob and I just kept hoping he would get better and hoping he would get better. And then the day that we called it was because he had 4 seizures back to back.
Yeah.
And that's really dangerous for a dog. I mean, he could have died right then and there, and he didn't. And we just looked at each other and we knew like it was just going to keep getting worse and worse. And so we made that decision. And then for whatever reason, from the moment we made that decision to the moment we said goodbye, he was the most himself that he had been in months. He had more energy. He was more alert. He had an appetite. He wanted to play. It was like the clouds had lifted and he knew that he just had to hang on for 5 more days, and he gave it his all, and we just had the best week ever.
What a gift to give you all at the end as well. To just be like to remind you of, you know, his personality, who he was. Like that's so also like just for clarity, some listeners may be like wondering if that made you second guess anything. And I think we had a conversation previously, not you and I, but on the show about when you know the time is right and just trusting that. What was your feelings after you made that decision? Was there like a wave of relief because the decision was made? Was it very like touch and go for a little bit? You know, like to do it on your own terms is obviously massively preferred.
Yes. My greatest fear was, and you know, because he had such intense epilepsy, you never know. Like you never know. It literally could just happen just like that. And he has a seizure and it goes on for too long and his body just gives out. Like you never know. It's always a gamble, and it was getting worse and worse. And my greatest fear was that there would be that type of emergency situation where we would have to rush him to the ER and he would die at the doctor's or even at home, but it was like traumatic and stressful. So I always knew that I wanted to do it on our terms. And to be completely honest, I did second guess because he was so himself. However, he was himself because we took him off a lot of his intense seizure medications because we just knew, like, you know, we kept him on them for so long because you have to maintain some semblance of, you know, normalcy. But we knew that we didn't have to worry about long-term effects. So we took him off his really intense medications, and that's not sustainable, right? So we knew that, like, honestly, probably the next day or the day after, he would have an episode that was just as intense, and we would have regretted it. We would have regretted not doing it on our terms. And then what really sealed the deal for me was I mentioned one of our really good friends is Simon's vet. And he is also the vet at Muddy Paws. So I know him very well. And I've worked with him many, many times. And I have witnessed him in a lot of circumstances. He is the absolute last person, no matter what, to recommend euthanasia. Like he is like, let's try everything. Let's see what we can do. And I texted him the morning that we decided. And I said, I think it's time. And he said, I think it's time too.
Mm.
And it felt like he was waiting for me to make that call. And as soon as he said that, because I knew he is not one to be like, yep, let's just do it. Like he really, really takes it seriously and he really like wants to try everything. And that was when I knew. I was like, okay, like I trust him so much that that was the call. And, you know, of course, I wish it could have been months from now, years from now. Like I wish Simon lived to be 45, like
Yeah.
in a perfect world. But if his death had to be any way, I am glad that it was exactly the way that it was.
Mm. Oh, that must be so comforting.
It was beautiful.
That's also like we got a really lucky day with Doug as well, where it was the morning where he really couldn't get up, and we were like, okay, because the day before he was struggling, but fine. His kind of the classic like brain connection to the hind legs was not as it needed to be. So when we made that decision, gorgeous day. I mean, we're lucky here in LA. It was like the odds were pretty good, but
like it was thunderstorming.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, but we were lucky to be able to do it like that, and yeah, just so fortunate.
When you made the decision, was it like you made it and then it was that day?
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah, it was that morning was very traumatic for a few different reasons. He just couldn't get up, and he was massive. He was like 120 pounds, and we knew that it wasn't sustainable to try to get him outside. Like it took two of us. It was very tough, and being able to see so clearly that we couldn't continue like that was what made the decision easy. Like this way of handling his aging or his decline was just not sustainable. It would not have kept his quality of life high, which is, as you mentioned, your main priority in taking him off the medication. His quality of life for those last few days was that's why he was able to feel so much better. On that day, we were arranging for someone to come to the apartment when they asked if we wanted a communal or an individual cremation. And if you know Doug hated other dogs. So my fiance and I...
What is a communal cremation?
Bunch of dogs one time, all in the furnace.
What?
Yeah, I feel like it's a efficiency, cost saving thing. Like end of life or post-mortem care for dogs, shockingly expensive, but that is an option. But my fiance Taylor and I looked at each other and both very firmly said individual at the same time, because he would have been pissed if he had to share a furnace. And that was such a light moment from a day that was hell. Were there some of those moments for you, or a moment of laughter that you didn't really expect?
Yeah, I mean, if there was one thing about Simon, it was that he was going to make us laugh, and he had such a personality. And I think the hardest part of him getting sick was that we saw less and less of it. I always say this, but he had the most patience in the world for dogs, and no patience for humans. And so that, especially me as his mother, he loved to boss me around. He loved to yell at me if I was like taking too long to do anything. And he had this bark, and I can send you the video. I could probably honestly like pull it up.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
It's so funny. But he loved to scream, and he hadn't done it in such a long time. The morning of his death, I have it. I'm going to play. This is him the morning of his death. But he hadn't screamed at me in forever, and I missed his, you get so used to your dog's specific voice, and I missed it. And that morning we like got up and we're like, we're gonna walk to the water, we're like crying, and he's screaming at me to like hurry up. And I'm like, I have not, he had not done that in so long that I'm taking a video of him and I'm like laughing, and you can hear it in the video. I'm like laughing and crying at the same time. And I just kept saying to Jacob, like, why is he doing this? Like, why? This is so crazy that like it's been months and months and months of nothing. And then that morning he's like, all right, come on, like, let's get this show on the road. I'm ready. And that really made us laugh. So he went out with a bang. He went out screaming. So.
That's great. Good for him. I alluded to the beautiful speech that you gave to your friends and family. I believe it was the day before you said goodbye to Simon. The words that got me the most out of, a whole thing that got me a lot, was that he's gotten you here and he's dropping you off. Not everyone is lucky enough to be accompanied by a dog during their most transformative years. It's also a major theme of your book. Obviously, we want as much time as possible with our loved ones, but did it feel like, in saying that Simon was aware that his job was done in a way?
Yeah, it felt like, and I've always felt this. It's hard to put into words, but I've always felt like Simon and I were on this like individual journey together. And I felt it about 10 months ago. I had a foster dog that I considered adopting. And I got really, really close. But what kept me from doing it and pulling the trigger was that, like, I just felt like Simon and I, it was just me and him against the world. And like, I had to see out that relationship to the very end, just the two of us, because we had been through so much together. I mean, he lived for 7 years. He probably lived in like 7 apartments. And I had been through multiple breakups and relationships. We had gone through COVID together. We had just been through so much. And it really felt like the closing of a chapter. I mean, literally just in the last few months, my book came out. Simon was diagnosed with cancer. We bought our first home together and we're getting married. And so it's like, I'm really setting down these roots, and just the timing of it is so crazy because he was this rock that I had through so much change and so much turbulence. And then within 2 months of me buying a home and getting married is when he passes. And so, it's hard to say. My best friend's father passed away many years ago, and she always hates when people say everything happens for a reason. She's like, well, then why did my dad die? And so I hate saying everything happens for a reason. But the timing of it felt very like intentional. And I also think I'm just a sappy person and I like to look for meaning everywhere. And so I think it helps me feel better to feel like, he was that constant for me. And now that, I have Jacob and I have this life and I have kind of like found myself here, he doesn't need to be that for me anymore. And I'm sure he's exhausted by it. He's like, well, can we just settle down somewhere? Can we stop moving? So yeah, I really do feel that way. And I don't think I could have gotten through my 20s without him. So forever grateful for that companionship.
Speaking of, I think you mentioned like the cosmic nature of it all. Are there any updates on Ghost Simon?
So not quite. This is a very funny thing because the day after he passed, Jacob, my fiance, took me to the North Fork, which is on Long Island. And as soon as we left, we started getting Furbo notifications saying that the first one was like crazy. The first one was, your dog is resting. And I was like, that's wild. The wording of it was weird. And then it was like, your dog is sleeping by the stools. And I was like, okay. And then it started getting crazy. And this is, I think, what everybody found so funny was like, then it was like every few minutes I was getting one that was like, your dog is climbing on the bookshelf. Your dog is hanging off the bookshelf. Your dog is like curled up next to the bookshelf for some cozy reading vibes. And it was just like all this stuff about the bookshelf. But what's so crazy is, I mean, that's crazy in and of itself, because I've had a Furbo camera forever and it's never malfunctioned or anything like that. It only happened when we were gone. As soon as it hasn't happened since we've gotten back. So I don't know if that was just his way of saying he's here, and it's right up his alley. I was like, of course, like as soon as he passes, he's like climbing on furniture and like learning how to read and like just being insane. But I have to believe that Ghost Simon exists, because he'd be the cutest little ghost ever. I'm like, I just want him like sitting in the corner watching me.
Yeah. My fiance is a little bit more like, I don't know if spiritual is the right word, but she
woo-woo. I believe in that stuff.
She believes in the universe, which I can get on board with in a lot of ways. And we had a couple unique experiences when Doug passed. While we were sitting with him on the porch, again, it was a beautiful day. We heard wind chimes, and we'd like never heard wind chimes out there before. They were coming from a balcony in the distance. And then some days went by, and it wasn't really top of mind that had happened until Aiden, who's our producer, he's in this room, showed up with wind chimes as like a gift to us. And we were like, we didn't told anybody that this happened.
Yeah.
And then two other, I think they were just companies that we've worked with, sent wind chimes. And that's not like the weirdest pet lost gift like that. That is something that people send, but it was pretty wild.
That is weird.
It was a little bit weird. And then the second story was Doug passed in November of 2023. And the next week we went to get a Christmas tree for our little apartment. And the guy that, I don't know if he ran the little Christmas tree place or he was just volunteering, but we pick out a tree and we bring it up to the front, and he's like, "Are you ready to take your Doug home?" And we were like, "What? What do you mean? Like, what? That's crazy." And he's like, "You're Douglas. This is a Douglas fir." And I was like, "What?"
God.
I was like, "That's like, get away from me." It was very like, and so we're walking the tree because it was like a block down the road, and we were just blown away. Like, we just couldn't believe that interaction had happened, because no one has ever called a Douglas fir just a Doug for short.
I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I was blown away. So on the topic, were there any other coincidences surrounding Simon's passing?
I don't know if there were any coincidences. I mean, it did. I think we're still in the coincidence zone.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It happened a week and a half ago. So I think it certainly could happen. Like I said, my wedding's coming up. And so I'm like, you better show up somehow, some way. You better be there. Yeah, I mean, I totally believe in that stuff. Like, Jacob is a little less, like, I'm like, I believe in ghosts. I believe in something bigger than us. And I also just like have to believe in that stuff. I mean, I saw some pretty funny like AI. I'm not an AI user, but like, people making AI videos of Simon like being greeted by Jesus.
Oh,
so
Isabel, and they won't stop doing it. That is something you can't control, that part of your because I think we're both uniquely blessed to have, when it comes to social media audiences, I think we're uniquely blessed to have some that are on the older side, and yes, because it's what we do is very approachable, and you just can't rein in their use of AI or Facebook memes, or you can't do it, and you can't try to either.
I can't even try.
Yeah.
I can't even try. There was the AI Simon meeting AI Jesus, but then a really funny one was Simon like running to the Rainbow Bridge, and there's like 3 dogs like greeting him, and then he like joins their pack and they like walk off into the sunshine, and one of the dogs, because it's AI, like disappears in the second shot. And one of my favorite comments that Jacob sent to me was the second the second dog, what was it? It was like the second dog disappeared because that's God. Like that's God. And he turned into God and he's watching over Simon. I'm like, where do you guys come up with this stuff?
Yeah.
But again, talking about grief, like it helps these people grieve, and to picture that helps people. And I don't necessarily believe in like heaven, but it is comforting to imagine Simon like meeting my childhood dog and like all of these things that we like to imagine that makes us feel better. So I don't think that there's any like none of us actually know, so there's no wrong answer, but
exactly.
I would prefer, if I could choose, I'd prefer Simon to be a little ghost in the corner of my room.
Well, here's hoping that is what's happening.
Yeah. On our next podcast, I'll be like, you won't believe it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, we had a dog psychic, an animal communicator on.
Yes.
And basically they simply said that anybody can do what I do by basically listening and training your intuition. And that kind of blew me away. So to wrap that up, if you're like, based on what she was saying, if you're getting like a vibe and you trust it, because I think it's more likely that you could maybe recount some of these unexplainable coincidences if you were to embrace maybe some of those feelings that you're having, according to
and I also, it's like what they say about sommeliers with wine, where it's like there's no wrong answer because it's what you taste. It's like, oh, it tastes like oak, or it tastes like, it's like, sure, it's right because it's what you taste. It's the same with like animal communicators or like pet loss or whatever. It's like there's no wrong answer. It is whatever you want it to be. And like the afterlife or your connection that remains is like however you interpret it to be. And that's just what it is. So
yeah, that's very well said. I think I saw in another video you mentioned that his things are still in the same spots. Is that true?
That is true. His bed, he had a huge bed and it was right next to my side of the bed. So I just moved it to Jacob's side of the bed, but we didn't put it away. I was just like, that's for you. But his toys are still out. His bowls are still out. And the way that I justify it is, I foster so much that another dog will use it soon. So why would I put it away? And it makes me feel better. There was a period of time, I would say like 4 or 5 days where, when you walk by your dog's bowl and the water bowl is empty and you're like, oh my God, I need to fill the water bowl.
Yeah.
There have been a few moments of that where I'm like, oh my God, because Simon loved to drink water too. And like if that bowl was empty, like it was not good. And I'd like lean down to fill up the water bowl and then I'd be like, oh, I don't have to do that. But, in a few weeks, I'll probably have a foster dog who will drink out of that same water bowl. So
yeah, I like that. I like that excuse. And there's also like, not that you need to hear this, but for anyone listening that needs to hear it, there's no right answer on when to vacuum or put away the things or donate them. I think that what I learned from Doug's passing is that the things left over are there to serve you in whatever way you need, I think.
Right.
Taylor and I decided to clean our entire apartment the afternoon that Doug passed, which I was hesitant. I was hesitant about that because I knew that I would want to be. I wanted something, and then I very quickly remembered that there were so many stains from his nose and his drool on the right rear window of my car that I could have that for as long as I wanted it. And it felt like a good distance from the pain, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't like a tuft of hair that would like, I don't know, roll by me or anything that would feel very raw. It was kind of just like they're back there and I wouldn't notice them all the time, but they were there if I like wanted to remember him, and I'd like roll the window down and whatnot. And it was probably 4 or 5 months before I let the detailers at Hollywood Stars Car Wash touch that window. So
you're like, don't touch this particular.
Yeah, I was like, you see that back there, like you're good on that. You don't need to detail that part. So yeah, I think there's absolutely no right answer. And when you said that, like, I think there can be a feeling that either like doing something with it would help the process or not doing something with it would help the process. And there's just not like a guide to that stuff.
Yeah. I also, so many of my friends have dogs now, and we always have people over, and like literally since Simon has passed in the week and a half, I've probably had 6 dogs in my home. And so I would just have to bring out the beds and bring out the toy. And like, it's
Yeah.
often enough that I do, I do need it out. But I have had that thought of like, you know, if I start fostering again, or when I start fostering again, like, do I want to get a new bed? Like, would it be painful to have them in Simon's bed? But we haven't made those decisions yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, I was going to say both of us have the unique privilege to not have a shortage of dogs around us if we need them,
Right.
For whatever reason. So,
You know what's interesting though is I was just talking about this today with a friend. I have dog sat twice, like very briefly in the past week and a half, and that's not abnormal. Like my friends and I are like, can you watch my dog for a night, or you know, whatever. And I watched one friend's dog for one night and one friend's dog for 2 nights, and it was so much harder than I thought. I thought that it would be comforting to have a dog around, but it was, and I don't think it was having a dog around. I think it was having someone else's dog around. And I almost think it'll be easier with a foster because it's not like another person's dog. But it was, my friend dropped off her dog. His name is Diego. And he was so like, you know, any dog is like pacing for an hour and whining and crying and missing his mom. And I just like had that feeling of like, oh, I had a dog that loved me like that. And like I had a dog that missed me like that. And that was really unexpectedly difficult for me, was to like witness my friend's dog missing them, because like I used to have that and I don't anymore. And I think that was just like a crazy feeling.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that. But that makes sense. Like those feelings make sense. Switching gears a little bit, can you tell me, well, I kind of know, but can you tell me what Simon's legacy looks like?
Oh man, I mean, I don't think there are any, I don't think there is like a cap to his ripple effect or his legacy. And I think it's bigger than I even thought that it was. Before he passed, Muddy Paws Rescue, who I primarily rescue and foster through, decided to name their veterinary clinic after Simon. So it's the Simon Sitz Veterinary Clinic. And that to me was probably the best gift I've ever been given, because not only do I foster medical dogs, but you know, Simon was a medical dog. And to just know that this rescue organization is like fully committing to the health and saving rescue dogs for God knows how long. And every time they get saved, it's going to be under Simon's name, is just the coolest thing ever. And I think it's the most appropriate way to honor him. But then even going a step further of just the number of people who have fostered because of him, the number of people who have adopted because of him, the amount of people that he has touched, I don't think there's a limit to it. And so I know that I will continue to honor him for as long as I'm alive, and every single dog that I foster and dog that I adopt will be in honor of him and in honor of, you know, what he's shown me love can be. I've already convinced Jacob that we have to name our first son after him. So there's that. And the list goes on. I mean, they're really like, I seriously don't think I'll shut up about this dog for the rest of my life. So everybody can get used to hearing about him.
I agree strongly that there is no cap, and you'll probably continually find new ways that there is that ripple effect, or a new way that he's inspired people that you didn't think about. One that comes to mind for me, kind of being in the dog space, but having not fostered nearly as much as you have, is that I don't think that many people were aware or are aware that if they have a dog, they can still foster. And him being such a, you know, poster dog for that environment, I think is remarkable. So there's the obvious ways, but I think you'll still encounter new ways as you think about him.
Yeah, I think so too. And I just think also showing people that having a dog that has medical issues like can also be the most rewarding, beautiful experience that you've ever had. I always say that I'm so glad I didn't know that Simon had epilepsy until after I adopted him because I would have missed out. I wouldn't have adopted him because I had no money. I had no business adopting a dog like that. But I would have missed out on the greatest love story I'll probably ever know. So I hope his story can show people that as well, and to give a chance to a dog that you might not typically give a chance to.
Yeah, I was just thinking that would you define your I guess specific niche of inspiring to foster? Is it with medical dogs? Because I kind of have put myself in the box of senior dogs. Like that's kind of my, like, I'm never going to get another puppy. Like I'm going to be, who's the decrepit old guy at the end of the, that's kind of where I see myself. Not that you need to put yourself in a box or anything, but it does make it easier for that ripple effect to be so like more intentional, I guess. So would you say it is generally fostering and medical dogs that feels like your zone?
I usually say, I call them the undesirables. So
Okay.
It's usually like a medical dog or a dog with behavioral problems or a dog from like an extreme neglect situation, like just a dog that needs a little bit extra care. But I always tell people, because I think that can also be intimidating to take that on, even as a foster, not even to adopt. Like 98% of rescue dogs are completely normal, happy, well-behaved, well-socialized dogs. And so, I go out of my way to find these like dogs that are a little bit more messed up, but most fostering experiences are not like the ones that I have. And as beautiful as they are typically a little bit more difficult. So I encourage people to foster no matter what. And I always say, like, if this seems like too much, like you don't have to do this.
Yeah.
Like, you could foster a much more normal dog, but those are always the ones that I am attracted to. And I love the old decrepit ones as well.
Yeah, it's a balance, right? Because it's like so lucky.
Scare people off and be like, oh, I don't think I can do that.
Yeah, no, it's like we're showing up. We're very lucky to have the whatever resources would allow us to embrace that while acknowledging that, not everyone does.
Right, exactly. And also, like, because we have such a far reach, those dogs that are undesirable have so much better of a chance of getting adopted, because so many people, like, will get a medical dog who has, like, let's say epilepsy, and they'll have this foster for like 10 months because they don't have that reach. And then if somebody like meets this dog, they're not falling in love with it in the same way that my audience is falling in love with my dogs, and they can kind of like overlook a medical issue. So I also kind of feel like it's my duty to foster those dogs, because like anybody can get a puppy adopted, but I have this audience that can get some of those harder to adopt ones out the door. You're
evening the playing field. It's the redistribution of wealth equivalent in the animal welfare world. All right, switching gears again. I, of course, have your book behind me. Surprise. Your book, Dogs, Boys, and Other Things I've Cried About, was an instant #1 New York Times bestseller. That's no surprise to really anyone, but was it a surprise to you?
The transparent answer is that they track book sales, and so I was getting like daily emails of like, course, here's how much your book's selling, here's how much everyone else's book is selling. So you kind of have an idea, but the bestseller lists are also a mystery. Like, it's not strictly just based on book sales. They weigh everything differently. So like, we think that indie book sales are weighed higher than Amazon, or hardcover is weighed more than audiobook. So you don't really have any idea how it's going to play out. But The transparent answer is that I did have a good idea, but even before all the book sales, no, I could not have fathomed it. I mean, it was my greatest dream. I write in my journal every single day, and I wrote every single day for like 2 years. My book is a #1 New York Times bestseller, like every single day. It was my greatest dream. And to have the reaction and for people to embrace my writing as like a real writer, I mean, that's everything I could ever want, is to like make that shift from content creator to a writer that people take seriously. So yeah, I was obviously thrilled.
Yeah, I think there's always, no matter how like relevant social media becomes in the grand scheme of things, there's always the allure of some of the more traditional pursuits, and writing being one of them. So congratulations again. Very, very impressive. The memoir moves between the dogs you fostered and the men you've loved. When did you realize those two parts of your life belonged in the same project?
That's a great question. I have always written about my life. I love reading romance stories. I love watching like romance movies. I just love love, and I love writing about it and reading about it. And so I've always written like personal essays, and it's kind of been this like separate thing from my persona online. I think it was, I met my literary agent, and we sat down and kind of had this conversation, and I knew I didn't want to just write a book about dogs, because personally, I love dogs more than most people on earth. I don't even want to read a book that's just about dogs.
I understand fully what you're saying, so don't. I
like,
totally get it.
I'm like, I personally, like, if somebody's like, you have to read this book, it's about like pet loss, I'm like, I'm good. Like, I like, and dogs are my entire life. So I knew that like, if I wanted this to be, have more broad appeal, I had to add something else in. And it just made sense. I mean, I spent so much of my 20s looking for love in all the wrong places. I always say I was pouring my love into men who didn't deserve it rather than dogs. And so when I kind of like unlocked that part of myself, that I'm like this sappy, romantic, heart on my sleeve type person, and I would meet a guy and just be like, oh, you like me? This is good enough. Like, I'll make this work. And even if we weren't compatible, even if he wasn't nice to me, even if, the list goes on and on. So when I found this outlet that was dogs, and I could pour all of my love into it, and I could give my all to it, and I would get that back, it was like this complete unlock for me. So pairing the two actually came quite naturally to me. And I think people who read it were surprised at how much the two experiences really mirror each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I that makes a lot of sense. And then also, like, just going back to like knowing what you wanted it to be, I think that is proportionate to how I think dogs, let me say, I haven't tried to articulate this, but to want them to like, I guess what I say is, I have the opportunity to talk about so many things in the world because dogs touch them. Like, yes, they're so universally adored that they're little bridges to other communities, other people, other cultures that, like, yes, it's about dogs, but they're simply a vehicle for connection in a lot of ways. And so to not want to make a book that is like all about dogs, that makes sense, because that's not all that dogs are. Like, there's such a... Yeah.
I also, to that point, I felt like a lot of media about dogs, whether it was books or movies or TV shows, were very like, I say Disney-fied, like very like cutesy, like sugary, whatever. And that has not been my experience with dogs. It's really deep and moving and grounding, and dogs have gotten me through like horrible things in my life, and I know that to be true with other people. And so I wanted to write a book about that, and I wanted to write a book about how I dated a heroin addict and he cheated on me with people on Craigslist, and how dogs got me out of that, and going through loss and all of these things. And so I had never read like a grittier, and not that this book is like really, I mean, I think it was more vulnerable and honest than people were expecting it to be, but I definitely wanted it to be a more grounded version of what dogs are, and how they actually move us through life, because it's not all like sugary sweet perfect. And I think that's probably why it was picked up to be a TV show, because if it was just one side of it, it wouldn't really be that interesting.
Yeah, also congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you.
So very exciting. Yeah, there's a depth to dogs that I think doesn't get full representation yet. And also it may be part of the reason we're dealing with some of the stigma now regarding like, you know, those undesirable dogs, because maybe that's part of the dog world that people haven't, you know, embraced quite yet on like the mass media Disneyfied way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this just came to mind, but one of my friends is the foster program manager at Muddy Paws, and immediately asked for a foster takeover. And the reasoning was, this doesn't look how I thought it would based on Instagram. And so there is this like perception of like, you get a dog and immediately it's going to be perfect, and you bring it to coffee shops and like it's just like fits perfectly into your life. And that's so not true for so many dogs. And it's just a deeper story that a lot of people don't explore.
Well, we're very grateful for you for telling it as well. I think that's
Thank you.
I'm glad you got the opportunity to do so. Okay, finally, what can your community and kind of everyone look forward to from you for the rest of the year and maybe beyond, if you know?
For the rest of the year, I mean, I'm definitely going to get into fostering again. That first foster,
Tough.
Who knows how that's going to go.
Yeah.
It's going to be great, but I know it's going to be emotional. I am working on a few other book projects, which is really great. So if you enjoyed my first book, you have something to look forward to in the future. And also some projects specifically surrounding Simon, which I think a lot of people will be really excited about. And that's another way his legacy will go on. I'm sure there will be so many other things as well, but yeah, I think it's going to be a good year despite it all.
Well, Isabel, thank you so much for joining us. It's always an absolute pleasure. I know this is pretty soon after the loss of Simon, so we really appreciate the time. You're obviously welcome back anytime, and you've got so many fans here, and of course in me. And we'll see you online, I'm sure, every morning.
Thank you, Matt. I love talking to you, and I can't wait to do it again.
All right, bye, Isabel. Because Simon's loss is very fresh, and I'm not here to just emotionally torture Isabel, I did want to share some of my favorite takes on grief. So I've collected a handful. Some are reframes on it. Some are pretty blunt, but they're all very comforting because they're only possible because we share in this human experience. They also remind me how close grief and love are connected, which I think is always a pleasant reminder. My first take that I love that you've probably seen is Andrew Garfield talking about the loss of his mom. He also did a wonderful video with Elmo, of all things, that shares the same sentiment. Andrew frequently says, "I hope that this grief stays with me because it's all the unexpressed love I didn't get to tell her." And I think that's a very beautiful reframe of what grief is. Then we have one of my all-time favorite people, let alone comedians, Caleb Heron, during his last meal segment with Mythical Kitchen. It was kind of an aside that he made, but I really loved the framing of it. He says, and this is a paraphrase, that it was very helpful to think of death as driving home after a long day spent surrounded by friends and family. Windows down, listening to music by yourself. You're so glad that you just saw everybody, but you're also glad to be doing your own thing now. You're assuming you'll see them again at some point, but who knows? And to think of death as that had helped him kind of get over the fear of it. And I think that is just another wonderful way to view it. Then we have Scott Van Pelt. He's a legendary ESPN anchor. I used to, like, every morning before school, I'd see this guy's face. Dedicated 5 minutes during SportsCenter 4 years ago to his dog Otis, who died just days earlier. I encourage you to watch the whole thing. It's just under 6 minutes. But in it, he says, "If this hurt is the cost of the transaction for being on the receiving end of a mighty love that I got to know in Otis the dog, then I pay it with enormous gratitude." A couple that are a little bit more anonymous, that have kind of just floated around the internet for a while, but have still really resonated with me. This one was on Tumblr. An anonymous person asks, "How do you process grief?" And then Rye Bread, with a phenomenal answer, says, "By running from it until it finds me in the middle of a sunny street on a beautiful day." I just think that's beautiful, and also, like, nods to how it's kind of always there, but I think of that as, it's easy to remember the way that I had to say goodbye to Doug. Thankfully, it being sun shining, those wind chimes. Whenever I experience some of those similar things in my life randomly, I'm able to think of him, and it is just another step in processing his loss. Then we have this from, I believe he's a poet. I know he's a writer, Joseph Fasano. He posted this on Twitter in 2024. He says, "When I was 15, my horse Cinnamon died, and I wrote this. My mother kept it all these years." And it's a note. It's titled "Gallop." "I used to brush your hair when we were young together. Now I find a last strand in the planter and walk out and give it to the wind again. We can't save the dead, but we can free them." I think that resonated with me because of when you have a dog that's passed, you just find their hair everywhere for a very, very, very long time. And it's always, you kind of have to confront that grief again every time. And then there's a switch where you go from confronting it in a way that makes you sad to confronting it in a way that makes you really happy, that you still have a piece of them. So, sorry. It was going to happen eventually. All right, I got one more. I can get through it. I think this is my favorite because I actually appreciate that, Bella, because I needed a moment. Yeah, notably, we didn't stop when Isabel was talking. One, because when we do the virtual interviews, it's hard. Like, they don't know that the dog is drinking. But also, she was talking about very heavy things, and I didn't want to be like, okay, we'll stop because the dog is drinking. But we usually do, but not this time. Yeah, I love this last one because it does just really show very clearly the parallels between grief and love, and I just love the way that it hits you. "They should invent a grief that doesn't define you in new and strange ways for the rest of your life," which is what grief feels like. And then someone replied, "To do that, they'd have to invent a love that doesn't define you for the rest of your life, I think." All right, well, it's time to say goodbye to Bella, but you'll notice that there's another being with me. That's Khaleesi from episode 68 or 69 when we had the animal communicator. She was very shy in that episode, and same foster as Bella here. So she's back and wanted to let you know that she's doing very, very well. Her foster said that they go to the beach frequently, and the beach has really opened up her personality, which is great to hear. So Khaleesi, an addendum to everything I mentioned in her episode, if you live by the beach or can get to one quickly, Khaleesi might be your gal. And then Bella, unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to Bella. As a reminder, 1.5-year-old Kelpie Australian Shepherd mix available for adoption from Real Good here in LA. If you are in an active household or you are confident that you can provide a dog with a very active lifestyle, Bella is a good candidate for you. She's a genius. She's been knocking out all the toys that are all the puzzles that we had behind the camera. She completed them all to the degree that there's very few treats even left. So she's a genius. If you'd like a dog genius that you really need to run around a lot, Bella might be your gal. Thanks once again to Chantel and Peter for sponsoring. Clap it up one more time for Chantel and Peter for sponsoring Bella's adoption fee. If you enjoyed this episode, you can give it a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're listening to this, you can add us to your playlist on Apple or Spotify. And we'll see you next time with another Adoptable special guest. They're all gone. You did it. You beat the puzzle.
Oh, that looks like a good dog. That's a good dog. Yeah, that looks like a good dog. A very good dog. Hey, that looks like